Excellent. Welcome. Listen, I'm not sure why my webcam's not integrating properly, but it doesn't really affect the first few lessons in our unit on acids and bases. So we're going to focus on acids and bases this unit. pH, what are acids and bases, what this neutralization and titration reactions are, and that's what we're going to do. So our first video is, of course, our learning targets and essential questions. So let's get to it. First thing you want to know about, these are the essential questions we're coming through here. What makes a chemical compound an acid and not a base? Okay, that's a big question. Second question kind of plays off of that one. How do you recognize acids and bases just based on their formulas? There's a few key indicators that let chemists know, oh, that's an acid, oh, that's a base, and off it goes. Okay. Next thing, what are these properties of acids and bases? So get familiar with what makes something acidic and what makes something basic, what they do when they touch water. What does the pH scale even really mean? We know that it goes from 1 to 14, 7 is neutral, it's in the middle, but what is 1 through 6.9? What does that number actually mean? 7.1 through 14, what does that number actually mean? That'll help us understand the pH scale better. How do acid-base indicators work? So there's a reference table M. It tells us 6 or 7 acid-base indicators and the color changes they go through. But how? Why? Why do they do that? We'll see that later in the unit. What happens when you mix an acid and a base? I said the word briefly. It's called neutralization. But what really happens at the atomic level is a major focus of this unit. And then, do acids really eat through surfaces like you've seen in the movies? That's kind of like the most intriguing question, I bet, for most teenagers is, do acids really do that, like I saw in the show? Well, there's a reference table that'll help us understand that behavior a little bit better. So let's get to our learning targets. You will be able to say that I can explain the behavior of acids and bases using a couple theories. That'll be in lesson number 3, the history and theories behind acids and bases. Identify characteristic properties of acids, bases, and their neutral salts. Okay, so acids behave this way, bases behave that way, salts behave a third way. Those are the characteristic properties that you'll have to know. Explain changes in concentration of this ion called hydronium, which has to do with the acid-base theory, using the pH scale. So pH scale change of 2 units relates to hydronium concentration. How? Okay, which direction you're moving has everything to do with how much it changes by. Predict pH indicator colors and the changes for said indicators when placed in acid or base solution. So you know you got an indicator, you know that it changes these colors, but when it touches that chemical, that base, it might change to this color. So predict those color changes. Neutralization reactions. Predict the 2 products of acid-base reactions given known acids and bases. Well, one of the products always going to be the same, and the second product uses your double replacement rules from moles and stoichiometry. So you'll be able to identify the 2 things that any 2 acids and bases will make when they mix. Any acids, any bases, when they mix together, you're going to get 2 products. You'll be able to figure out one and memorize the second. Using the titration, determine the concentration of unknown acids using known concentrations of base. So when you mix an acid and a base in a very careful way, instead of just, salt, baking soda, and vinegar, when you do it carefully, you get a very predictable result, and you can actually use it to measure concentrations of bases if you do it the right way, and that's a titration technique. It's like a rite of passage. Everybody's got to do it. It's kind of fun. It's useful, and you'll get familiar with it. And then using the reactivity series, table J, you'll be able to predict which of the metals that exist will react with an acid to produce H2 gas. So like in the movies, when you see acid splashed on something and it starts to eat away at it, you'll be able to tell which metals this would actually happen to and which it would not. Okay. So there's your checklist. Please go in order. It's the best way to complete a unit is by going in order. And that brings us to the end of video 1. Hopefully I'll see you later in the next video if this webcam starts working. Hasta la vista, baby. I click the button and turn off the video.